Hi Not Board Gamers, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now in today's video we're going to be taking a exclusive first look and review of Hoplomachus Remastered from Chip Theory Games. That's right, it's Hoplomachus Remastered. As you will probably be aware of, Chip Theory ran a Kickstarter last year for Hoplomachus Victorum, which is their solo-only kind of evolution of Hoplomachus, the kind of one of the first games they released quite a few years ago now, which Hoplomachus Rise of Rome, Hoplomachus Origins, etc. And this new Hoplomachus is a reimagining of that, or an updating of that, if you like. So Victorum is the solo-only game, which is also going to be delivered to backers shortly. I have my copy down here, and I know it's been covered on other channels. But they've also released as well Hoplomachus Remastered, which takes the kind of multiplayer aspect of Hoplomachus and brings it into a new modern age with upgraded rules, upgraded arenas, upgraded units, etc. So what I'm going to be doing is taking you through my thoughts on Hoplomachus Remastered, which plays from 1 to 4 players. Now, I will caveat this heavily as well. As many of you know, I cover a lot of Chip Theory games, and I was the only reviewer, and still am the only reviewer, to have a copy of Hoplomachus Remastered. And I said as much in my Burn Cycle video that, you know, I don't feel that I can kind of truly review a Chip Theory Games game without an element of bias. So I will caveat this by saying, you know, I am getting a sword like a lot of reviewers got. I did get the only copy of Hoplomachus Remastered. I have got Hoplomachus Victorum down here as well. So I will try to be as objective as possible, but do bear in mind that this review will probably carry some element of bias. Now, I am also going to kind of also further underwrite that as well by saying that even if that bias wasn't there, I do like the Hoplomachus games of old, and I really do like these updates and reimaginings as well. So if you saw my unboxing video of Hoplomachus Remastered and Victorum, which I did a few weeks ago, you'll know exactly what you get in the box. And, you know, so I'll not go through all the components. I will say, of course, that they are absolutely top notch. And in this new reimagining of Hoplomachus Remastered, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe, new factions to fight with. Let me just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe 6 factions, 6 or 7 new factions to fight with. We have the ones I have here that I'm going to use in this in the overview of the Lemosians. We have the new Argonauts. We also have the Atlanteans. We have Pluto's Revenge. We also have the Parthians, which are these guys here, Kunlun, which are these guys here, and as well as the Amazonians as well, which are the dark green guys. So that's kind of the new factions that you're going to get to fight with. Now, I also want to say as well that obviously this is a reimagining and an updating of Remastered, and I know a lot of people will be looking for how it plays against the old Hoplomachus, the original Hoplomachus. Now, full disclosure, I lent my copy out to a friend of mine about 6 months ago, so I've not been able to kind of truly compare this to the old one, because it's a good kind of 6 or 7 months since I played it, but it does feel slicker. But yeah, that's kind of full disclosure. I'm sure there'll be other comparison videos out there, and I'm sure that some clever people will come up with ways to at least use the new factions in some of the old arenas, like the Farmel Arena, etc. Excuse me. However, so as I say, the game is 1 to 4 players, and it's got 5 modes for the game as well. Obviously, I'm going to be concentrating on the solo modes, and there are 2 solo modes available. You have the Onslaught Mode, which is wave after wave after wave of immortals coming at you, and that's these here, and there are 6 immortals coming at you. And let me tell you, you're not going to get anywhere near defeating those 6 in your first kind of first few plays of this, or even in subsequent plays. It gets progressively more difficult as your health units kind of, your health of your units kind of reduces, etc. We also have Ascension Mode, and Ascension Mode is where you and your chosen unit, your chosen faction, are going to take on one of the mighty titans that come with the game. And of this, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 titans that come with the game as well. Each one has their own abilities. Each one has their own kind of a way of adjusting the environment and the combat against you, and become, you know, it can be quite difficult. There are some relatively easier ones, and then we get some really, really hard ones as well, which will truly kick your butt. So those are the 2 solo modes. We have Onslaught, as I say, which is against the Immortals, which is wave after wave. And we also have the Ascension mode, which is against 1 Titan. You use a reduced number of faction units there to try and compete against that Titan. I have also, with my wife, played the Skirmish mode as well, which is a PvP version. That's for 2 players competitive on either arena. And there are 2 arenas. There's the Pizzuli Arena and the Colosseum as well. And my wife utterly loved it. She'd never played a Chip Theory Games game before. But I'll not really cover that, because there will be people doing, at some point, multiplayer kind of playthroughs. And they also have Pandemonium mode, which is 3 to 4 players competitive on the Pizzuli Arena, and also an Alliance mode, which is for 4 players competitive teams, so 2 teams of 2 on the Pizzuli Arena as well. So that's 5 modes of play that you get with Hoplomachus Remastered. So what I'll do is I will just take you quickly through how the Onslaught mode works, and quickly how through the Ascension mode works, and then I'll talk about my thoughts on Hoplomachus Remastered from Chip Theory Games, which should be hitting backers in the next month or so. Okay, so as I said, for the solo gamer there are 2 modes available, and these can also be played co-op as well. You have the Onslaught mode here, and you also have the Ascension mode as well. So the Onslaught mode is effectively, you're going to face off against wave after wave of the Immortals. So let me go through some of the chips on here, because of course, you know, it's a Chip Theory Games game. It's going to be made up, well, the gameplay is going to be made up of some of these chips. Let's start up here, and here you can see there are 8 arena chips, and you can identify those by being the kind of standard thickness chip that says arena on the back. For the Onslaught mode, all of these chips are going to be placed into the bag for the game. So in the game itself, when you get the game, you're going to get a black felt bag. However, if you've got the deluxe component upgrade, so Chip Theory has kind of sent me through the gold bag. It's absolutely glorious. Look at that, the red and gold bag. You're going to put all those chips in there. Then what you're going to need is also, you're going to have to choose a neutral hero. So there are 3 neutral heroes in the game, and you're going to earn one of these heroes throughout the game by completing crowd favour, which is this here, and I'll explain how that works in a bit. So let's just say it's this, it's Rostam. Here we go, Rostam. That is going to be the potential neutral hero that I can earn in the game. Those others are going to go back into the box. Now here we have our 6 Immortals, and these are who you're going to face off on against in a random way throughout the game. And the aim is, of course, to try and best all 6, but I've not managed to get to 3 yet. I've almost got to 3, but not quite. And we have, let me get this right, we have Telegonus, should I say? We have Nuba. We have Azdaha. We have Anthony Blackbird. We have Feathered Serpent. And we also have the Realm Stalker as well there. I'm going to shuffle those up. And then you're going to place them up at the top on the opponent's side up there, and that way you don't know which immortal is going to come out first. Now these are all the heroes that you can, all the factions you can choose in the game. So we have the Mosans, Kunlun, Pluto's refugees, the Parthians, the Lost Argonauts, the New Argonauts, I think it is, maybe, yeah, New Argonauts, and the Amazonians as well. So I'm choosing to go with the Limosans now. So we have our hero here. Now, in the Onslaught mode, you are going to use all of your chips. That's not quite the same as it is in Ascension mode, and I'll explain that in a bit. And you're going to put all these chips over in your camp, and there are 2 of most chips. So here we have 2 of those. We have 2 marksmen, and then what's going to happen is each faction is going to have its own beast, which in this case It's the Dread Owl, and it's going to have a faction that has the Beastmaster the Beastmaster innate ability on there as well. And again, well, I'll explain how that works now. When you are, if the beast is on the board without the Beastmaster being on the board, then it's got a roaming on there, and you would roll one of the arena die, which is this here, and then move it in whichever direction it lands on. And there's a key down there to tell you. If you have the Beastmaster on, then what happens is that beast would then move normally, so that would have a normal move of 4. If the Beastmaster isn't on, you'd roll that dice four times and do the moves that are on there. If the Beastmaster is on the board, then it can move 4 in any direction that it wants. You're just going to take your hero and you're going to flip them to their inactive side, which is this side here, because your hero has to be activated through crowd favour, which is down here. Now, finally, we have tactics chips, and each faction shares 3 of the same tactics chips, and those are stun, hamstring and adrenaline. But then each faction also has its own unique tactic chip. And in the case of the Lemosians here, Lemosians, excuse my pronunciation, they have crowd assistance tactics. So this unit is dealt any 1 damage. And what you can do with your tactics chips, in general, is you can apply them to yourself or to your own units or to the opposing units if they're adjacent to you. However, there is an ability, which is a tactical ability, which eschews that. And then here we have the dice. Now, again, Chip Theory sent me through the alloy dice. In the game, it comes with some very nice standard plastic dice, but there are the alloy dice here. And we can see that there they go, and they've got progressively increasing number of hit points on there as well. The little here we go, little sword icons mean it's a hit. So less hits on these. I think they're 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 hits there. So yep, that's right, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 hits. So you've got a better chance of achieving a hit, obviously up this end of the colour scale, than you have down that end of the colour scale. And finally, there are 3 arena dice, and you're going to use them for various things. So let's just move the dice off the table, and we'll talk about crowd favour in the Onslaught mode. So your crowd favour bead is this here, and it's going to start off below this track. Now, the only way you can attain crowd favour is going to be to issue damage against an immortal. So let's say the immortals come out and it is this this feathered serpent, and they're out on the board there. The only way you can earn crowd favour is by issuing damage to that immortal, but you cannot actually deplete its health points. So this starts off with health points of 5. Let's do 5 of the blue chips. Again, these are the deluxe chip components. Yep. And that's on the board there. And if I was next to it and I tried to damage that, I could damage it to earn crowd favour, which would take me up this track here, but it wouldn't actually damage that. The only way you can actually damage that is by destroying its allied units, and they're going to come out on the board, and I'll explain how that works as we go through a little bit of the flow of the game. Crowd favour becomes very important because as you go up the crowd favour track, the very first thing says you activate your primary hero. So this is your hero that we've put face down on here. They can't come out until they're activated. They have to be flipped up. Then you go up and you can return tactics to your camp. So if you use your tactics by this point, you can then activate that crowd favour, get them back to your camp, give yourself that fighting advantage, and tactics are very useful. Here you can return 2 units to your camp. Your units are going to get defeated. And that's why I've only lasted kind of 2.5 of the immortals so far, not made it to 3. And moving up this crowd favour track becomes a real balance as you try and race up there to get your dead units returned to your camp. And then the final one up here is, of course, where you can get, and then he goes into your camp active, your neutral hero, or a neutral hero, which allows you there. But the only way you can do that is by issuing damage. The only way you can attack the immortals directly, and that will move you up the crowd favour track, but it won't actually reduce their hit points. The only way to reduce their hit points is from the arena units that are going to come out of the bag. So when you defeat those, that take a damage off these guys as well. So yeah, so that's kind of a brief overview on things and how they work, but I'll just take you through a very, very kind of quick look at exactly what happens in the rounds. One thing I meant to mention as well, another way to kind of damage the to reduce the hit points of the immortals is if you start your round with one of your characters on the 2 stone pillars there, that will automatically reduce that down by 1, which is of course going to move your crowd favour up as well there. So when you've defeated its allies, that reduces damage from the immortal, and also if you start your round on one of the 2 stone plinths, then that will reduce a hit point from the immortal. Of course, if you've got both of your characters on there, then 2 of them are going to get removed from there. Okay, so now, as I say, quickly into the flow of the game and how it works. Okay, so I've got it here just towards the end of the first turn. And why is it not all the way through the first turn? Because generally on the first turn, you're just going to be moving, putting stuff on the board, and there may be the odd opportunity to move. You see, you're going to deploy 1 unit each turn for either yourself or the rival side until you've reached the maximum number of units. That's 3 units for you, and for the rival side, it's 1 immortal plus 2 arena units, which you're going to draw out of this bag. So we've pulled our first immortal out of the bag, off the pile there, and it is the Realm Stalker who's moved up there. They have Combat Lock and Beastmaster as their innate abilities. That means not a great deal happens at that stage. Basically, they're just going to stay there. I've chosen my first warrior as the strategist, and I put them there, but they've got the ability to move. You see, generally when you pull put your chips onto the board, they are dazed. That means you can only put them on a deployment hex, which are these here, but you can't actually move them or do anything with them when they're dazed unless they have certain skills. This one has a tactical skill on there, which allows you to move them for the round that they're deployed on. And bear in mind, these stone hexes are really, really important. She's got a movement of 3, so 1, 2, 3. The strategist has moved onto the one of the stone hexes, so that's how the strategy's got there. Then I drew the brigand out of the bag for the arena unit, so I pulled that out of there. That's got a 3 health. It's also got tactical as well. So as I mentioned, tactical is an innate skill. There are skills. It tells you here that tactical, this unit can move during the turn it is deployed, and this unit's troop can play tactics on adjacent opponents, including not including elite units. Elite units are kind of any of the thicker chips that you've got there, basically. So that has moved out. It's got tactical. There is a priority list down at the bottom on Onslaught Mode, which tells you where they're going to move, and it says opponent on stone hex, hero, or strongest opponent. So they've got a movement of 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's put them there. They've moved to within the adjacent position of my unit on the board. So that's kind of the first round done. Not a lot happens in the first round. Remember, the only way I can move up this crowd favour track and unlock my hero is if I start issuing damage to the Realm Stalker. So now we'll just go quickly into the second round. The Realm Stalker, the immortal turn is, first one is deployment. There is nothing that can happen there. Then we have movement, and we're going to move here, and again following the priority list, which is anybody on a stone there, it's going to move 2 towards there. Then we have abilities, which we don't have, and we have engagement. Now, here's the thing, yeah, on engagement, if this was attacked next to me, or if this beast was next to me, the immortal was next to me, I'd be rolling those dice as an attack towards me. It's not, but you still roll the attack die. So we have green, blue and yellow. So it's green, blue and yellow. And why do we roll that? You see, on these sheets, on this immortal sheet, it tells you what the attack die are, and then what happens if you don't just hit, but you also get these engagement pieces here. So let's roll this, yeah? So, look at that. We have a green, a blue, and a yellow. So it's a green hit, a blue hit, and a miss on yellow. So although it couldn't directly attack me, we follow this down top to bottom. Realm Stalker deals 1 damage to its target for each other beast unit in play. There are no beast units in play, so that's okay. Realm Stalker deals 2 damage to each opponent on a stone hex. Oh my god. Here we go. Realm Stalker has done that, and it missed on the yellow, thankfully. It did say there, if I'd hit yellow, players may displace Realm Stalker up to 3 hexes. For each hex displaced, the Realm Stalker gains 1 HP. Wow. So even though the Realm Stalker wasn't next to me for attacking, you do roll those dice basically for an engagement, and that will dictate exactly kind of what happens as they move about the board, which is really, really scary. Yes. Okay, so that's the Realm Stalker's turn done. Now it's on to my turn. First of all, you check stone hexes, because if I check my stone hex, that's the first one on the on my player turn, and I'm on this stone hex, I issue a damage to the Realm Stalker. Yay! Crowd goes wild. Crowd favour has moved up the board there. Okay. Next, I get deployment. So let's have a look at what we can do then on deployment. I think we could stand a good chance of getting rid of this guy here. So I'm going to deploy. The Realm Stalker is going to come for me, whatever. I'm going to deploy my marksman here. I'll talk about the skills that are on there. So he's got 2 hit points. So that's deployment. Then it's tactic placement. So remember I said with your tactics chips you get 3 that each unit has and then a unique one. The unique one for the Lemosians is crowd assistance. This unit is dealt instantly, this unit is dealt 1 damage. So let's just deal that damage there to that brigand. We could get rid of the brigand, but that is that tactic used. That's my tactic gone. Then we have abilities. There's no yellow abilities, so abilities are in yellow on the various chips, and none of these have got yellow abilities on there. And then we can engage. Well, so first of all, if I look at what my strategist has, he has 1 red die. She has. If I take the red dice and I roll it, I know it's a definite hit. There we go, because there's 6 hits on the red dice. That's another one off the brigand just there. But then you see, I mentioned you can use, generally when units come out, they're dazed, they can't do anything on their first turn unless they have tactical and also first strike as well. Now what first strike allows you to do is make an attack or a special, and this has got a special on it, on the turn that they're deployed. And if we look at this, it says here their attack, but their range is only 2, that's obviously further than 2 away, so I can't do that. But it also has first strike 4. So with first strike 4, what you do is you roll the weakest dice on there, and that's yellow die, up to 4 hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I get a hit, this could work. Yay! There we go. It's a hit. So what we've done is we defeated the brigand. Boom. That's been defeated. They're going to get returned to the bag in a sec. We moved upon crowd favour again because I defeated the brigand and taken away that immediate kind of danger for me there. So we return that to the bag, and what we're going to do now is we'll move down to the arena turn. So that's all my go done. This strategy is looking a little bit weird. We have issued 1 damage there. Oh yeah, I've taken away, it's not just that, is it? That has also kind of lost 1 as well. There we go. Oops. Health chip in the bag there. And that's why that crowd favour has gone up, is because I've damaged the Immortal again by defeating the brigand, damaged the Immortal, moved crowd favour up by 1. And that is kind of my first turn done there, I think, yeah. Okay, and now we're on to the arena. It's deployment. Now, they still don't have 2 units out on the board there. So we're going to pull a unit out of the bag. What we got? We've got a lion. And that's coming onto the board with 4 health. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, they're dazed. They're not going to move. You can choose which of the deployment hex to put them on. So they're not going to move. There's no other arena units on there. Had that been there, then that would have engaged. It could have attacked me, but we've already got rid of the brigand. That is the end of the first 2 rounds, and you can see the flow of the game. I'll say you got this push to move up here, so I could activate my hero. You've got the use of the tactics as well. I already used that tactic quite effectively to get rid of an early arena enemy, and also then deplete some of the Immortal's health and move up another 1 on the crowd favour track. But I don't get this back until I do this crowd favour up to there, so it's really progressive. You're going to do that, then what happens is at the end, once you've defeated that Immortal, you're going to keep that. Your units are going to move back onto your side, or the ones that are still alive. The dead ones are still dead. The ones that are still alive are going to move back onto your side, clear the health, they get to come out with full health. Your hero, if you had them out, which is here, if you've achieved this crowd favour, your hero is going to flip back to its inactive side because you're going to reset that crowd favour. You're going to draw a new immortal out of the bag and start all over again. And the aim of the game is to clear out those 6 immortals. And let me tell you, it's a meaty challenge. Okay, hopefully the Onslaught mode gave you a good indication of kind of how the game works and the mechanics of the game, but I'm sure you have that already. Now we're going to talk about Ascension mode. In Ascension mode, you're effectively going to just come up against one Titan and try and battle them, but it works in a slightly different way. See, one of the key things being is over here you have your crowd favour, which is going to work in a very, very different way. Sorry, I forgot to put a neutral hero there, so it's Roston again. So with crowd favour, you get to choose how you work through this, and every time you issue some damage, you move up 1 on the crowd favour, which gives you some abilities. So you can activate your hero, you may move or flip a foothold each turn, you can add 3 HP to your unit, you gain that particular support chip straight away, and you place this hero in your camp basically. You can't do the gold 1 in gold until you've done all the rest with crowd favour. When you issue damage, you're going to move up there, and then eventually you will get that chip, and that chip I'll explain about in a second, because you'll notice that it's different. We're in the Colosseum now basically, and you're only going to fight against the Titan. There's one, I think it's Scheherazade, who has 3 kind of ally chips as well, but generally you're only fighting against the mighty Titan. So we have Mars in play here, but there are 6 in total. Another key difference as well as your unit, your hero, so here we have the Lemosian's hero, you're only allowed to choose 6 of your units and 1 tactic, and that's it. So the rest of them, here we go, here's the rest of my units and tactics, go away. You don't get to use those. Now, you're going to bully up and boost up potentially as you unlock these footholds, or sentinels as they can be. There we go. And certainly this hero, but your resources are limited. So kind of choosing those 6 units, depending on which faction, who you're fighting against, is particularly important. At the bottom of these stacks here as well are some shards. Now these shards, that's the inactive side and the active side. They operate very differently for each of the 6 Titans that you're going to face. And on the front of each Titan sheet, it tells you what the shards do and how they operate. So for Mars, they're there, but on top of them, we have a foothold and 5 HP as well. And that foothold is a unit. As soon as I attack that unit, it flips to becoming a sentinel. There we go. And because it's blue on the back, that's the Titan sentinel. If there's an arena turn, that sentinel is going to attack my guys. Now, so that's kind of the flow of the game, and the aim of it is to, again, pretty much like in the Immortals game, not the Immortals, sorry, in the Onslaught mode against the Immortals, is to defeat, the main person. However, in Immortals, you keep going, keep wave after wave. With the Titan, with Ascension mode, it's just 1 Titan. You can see Mars starts with a mighty 14. So let's just talk about these Titan sheets then. So we have the various kind of game-altering rules on the front of the sheet here. So here we can see Mars, and it says Mars ignores all damage not dealt by sentinels and shard holders. So at some point, if I defeat the sentinels on these pedestals, whoever defeats them gets the shard, and that means they can then attack Mars. Also, if I unlock a sentinel and I place it onto one of those, then what will happen is they can attack Mars as well, but it can't be defeated, it can't be damaged by any other way. During setup, place all of Mars' Titan dice in a draw bag and draw 4 of them and set in Mars' camp, then return the rest of the dice to the supply. These are the only dice he can use, basically. Each time an arena unit is defeated, place the rest of Mars' Titan dice back in the draw bag and draw 1 more to add to his camp. So he's going to start with 4 dice. How do I know which 4 dice? I don't, but just tell me which Titan dice go in there. So I've got all those there, and we know Mars is going to choose 4 of those. That will be his 4 starting dice. So let's see, and each one operates slightly differently. We have a blue. We have a grey, a black, sorry. We have a yellow, it's a good spread. And we have a green. So the only one missing in there is the red so far, which is good for me, because the red activates the arena turn. So that we know he's going to use those initially until I defeat one of these arena units here. And bear in mind, I have to defeat an arena unit to get to the shard, so therefore it's pushing you down that direction. Finally, shards start with 5 hit with no active with no HP. On top of each shard, place a blue foothold soldier, which is here. A blue foothold with 5 HP. After it's dealt damage, it's going to flip over to become a sentinel. And then that sentinel, if an arena turn is triggered, will then fire upon me. However, if an arena turn isn't triggered, and that only happens if a red die comes out of there, then I can still go around attacking those. It's entirely feasible. You can kill them all without getting an arena die, but it's very, very difficult to do that. Basically, yeah, the odds are stacked against you there. That's kind of the rule changing stuff there. And then when you roll his dice, say we roll these 4 dice here, this tells you how Mars is going to operate here. And here we go. So you follow it from top to bottom. And we'll do this. We'll do green. All his dice hit there. Yellow, blue, and black. So if we look at this, it says for each green hit, Mars advances. Roll an arena die. So you roll one of these. And we got a 4 there. If you see there against 4 on that, it says Mars moves up to 2 hexes. Well, my soldiers aren't on the board yet, but let's say, one of my guys was up here. So we've got this guy up here. Again, the same rules follows. There is days when they come out unless something allows them not to be. So that's that done there. That's the green die done. Then we got the yellow die. 1 or more hits. Mars flits the blue foothold furthest from him to a sentinel. So in reality, that's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Either or. So let's flip that one over to a sentinel. So that is now active if a turn was going to happen. That's a yellow one done. So for each hit, Mars uses a smite. He's got a blue hit there. So we're going to roll an arena dice again. Okay, let me roll that. And that's a 2. And let's have a look on here what a 2 does. A 2 says Mars attacks an adjacent target. I'm not adjacent. Phew. Had I gone to a 4 or 5, he could have attacked me there. And then we've got the black one. It says 1 hit, Mars uses toss. Toss deals 1 damage to an adjacent target and displaces it 3 hexes away from him. So if I was there, he'll deal a damage and then could throw me 3 hexes away. So 1, 2, 3. And around there, if you like, which again is not great. Now, you'll also notice on here, there are some other hexes as well. We have the center hex and then the kind of inner deployment hexes as well here. So in these inner deployment hexes, they can stop you doing stuff, and certainly if you start your turn on there, you get 1 damage basically. And so yeah, you have slightly different there. Mars is going to deploy onto this, and that's how the game's going to progress. As you issue damage, you're going to move up the crowd favor. Take this and use it as either a foothold, which means that you are stopping that player, you're stopping the Titan from using that particular hex, and also it blocks the effect of a hex there. You could put it on there and that hex becomes usable for you. Or if this is defeated, you could have it as a sentinel there. They would attack on your turn and attack Mars, because remember from the beginning it says here Mars ignores all damage not dealt by sentinels and shard holders. You're going to play through that round after round after round. Your units are going to get depleted. You're going to deplete Mars eventually, and any of the other Titans, and hopefully whoever's the last person standing is the winner. And that's kind of how the Ascension mode works. And as I say, there are, with the game, 6 Titans to fight against. We have Mars, we have Circe, we have the Monkey King, we have Scheherazade, Ixchel, and Shagdad. Let me tell you, the Monkey King is very, very, very difficult, because he starts bouncing around all over the map, basically, making it difficult tracking down, really going for you. So the Monkey King becomes very, 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 very difficult to beat. And that is Ascension Mode, and approximately how it differs from the Onslaught Mode. Phew. Right, that's quickly about both games, probably a bit longer than most people wanted. Let's discuss my final thoughts. And there we go. That is a quick look, some may say not quick enough, through the 2 kind of soloable modes of Hoplomachus Remastered from Chip Theory Games. We have the Onslaught mode, and Ascension Mode as well. Both of them, as I say, can be played co-op as well. And then there are 3 additional modes. Only one of those I played, which is the Skirmish Mode, which my wife thoroughly enjoyed. So, what are my final thoughts on Hoplomachus Remastered? Well, I just want to kind of drop back to the beginning of the video where I had to caveat this. It's very fortunate to be the only reviewer to be sent a copy of this, and I do have a pretty good relationship with the guys at Chip Theory Games, so I'm going to try and be as kind of constructive, point out the real kind of bonuses, and also some things which I might think might be a little bit limiting for some people, and maybe ensure, you know, it may in some cases not be the right game for some people as well. Well, first of all, you know, the sheer variety of the not only the factions, the titans, the immortals, the 2 sides on the board, all the various game modes means that, you know, in this box itself there is quite a considerable amount of gameplay in here, and I think that's really good. If the core principles of Hoplomachus, you kind of enjoy those, then you know you can play it myriad different ways, both solo, cooperatively, competitively, and in a teams basis as well. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think, you know, the components wise, you saw the unboxing video. I really don't have to talk about the quality of the components. They are absolutely outstanding, as you would expect from Chip Theory Games. Everything from the kind of the quality of the stitched neoprene mats, the quality of the chips, the artwork on the chips themselves, which is utterly fantastic and really immersive in there also, and everything else that you get with the game. But there are these upgrades as well. So of course we have the alloy dice, which are just utterly beautiful. The plastic, there's nothing wrong with the plastic dice that come with the game, but the alloy dice are utterly beautiful. They're really weighty, nice, make a great sound on there, and they just feel a bit special to play with them. You also have the upgradable bag, which is utterly beautiful as well, and you have the Victorum dice tray, and I think you can get a dice tower as well, which obviously I've not got, as well as the premium health chips. Like Too Many Bones, like Cloudspire, the health chips that come with the game, they feel a bit light in comparison to everything else. I understand why that, because it would add a lot on for shipping and production costs. So, you know, if you have some of your existing premium health chips from Chip Theory, then they will also work with Hoplomachus. Just make sure you count out the right number as well. See, certainly in Victorum, and I think in here as well, if you don't have any health chips left because you've got them out on the board, then you can't deploy your soldiers. It's not that you find a suitable alternate, so they're meant to be a finite resource. The you know, the quality of these sheets for the Immortals and for the Titans is also really good. It's that kind of PVC stuff that they're very famous for. That great smell. I love it. I know some people don't like it, and the use of the skills sheet as well is really useful. As you can imagine, with this game with lots of modularity in it, lots of different skills, learning each of those skills is going to take some time. So therefore the use of this skill sheet is really useful. I can play the game without using it too much now, but sometimes I still have to revert back to it. So the rulebook then. So the rulebook is going back to, if you remember the Burn Cycle rulebook, it was thinner paper than what we'd been used to from Chip Theory Games. It's gone back to the thicker paper here, and it lays everything out really nicely. It breaks down each of those kind of modes for you to play, as well as giving you the basic gameplay principles right at the beginning. There is a keyword section at the back, which is really useful as well. So the rulebook tends to work in the main, and I think I'll talk about the rulebook as a potential, just kind of something that isn't quite perfect for me, and I'll explain the reason now. And I think some of that is mired in the fact that this is a modular game, and with modularity comes lots of variables and lots of options, etc. And the rulebook doesn't necessarily provide you with all of the information in the format that some people may want it. So you have to use a little bit of a logic kind of tree with the rule book sometimes, or with the rules of the games, and bearing in mind the modularity of the games, you have to use a little bit of a logic puzzle. If it doesn't say it, then don't assume that it's in there. It may be a general rule, but unless it says it, don't actually assume that it's in there. For example, in Kunlun, there is a particular beast. There's I think it's a hippo or something along those lines. Let me see if we can find it. And that hippo, or whatever it is, there you go. It would always be the last one. It's not there. There we go. It's a war rhino, not a hippo, a war rhino. I don't know if you can see that on there, but it says 0 movement. It's got roaming, but 0 movement. That means you don't roll any dice for it, or it doesn't move, and that means it's stationary on the board. So I was trying to think, okay, so what does that mean? Is it a misprint on there? And what it actually means is that there are abilities that others have, maybe a shove ability or something that would cause it to move when it's moved by others. So there's also hurl on here as well from one of their units. There's hurl on there, and what that would allow them to do is then hurl that rhino, and therefore it would move. But it just felt like, it's not properly explained in the rule book. So a bit of a logic puzzle. Says if it's not there, then you have to work that through back in your head to understand that as to how it's going to work there as well. So yeah, there's just I think the modularity of it just makes a rule book. It would have to be very thick to cover every eventuality, but as long as you apply that kind of logic to it, you should be okay. The guys at Chip Theory have been very good in answering my questions, and of course there is a huge amount of kind of people and activity on the various forums there. So if you've got experience with Hoplomachus in the past, shouldn't be too much of an issue. For new players, bit of a logic tree that you're going to have to go through, and you'll eventually work it out, but certainly ask the question. So yeah, I think other than that, the rule book is pretty good. It's all worded nicely. You've got those keywords there, explains it all, certainly teaches you how to play the games. You're going to hit a couple of barriers, but with a bit of a thought process behind them, you should easily be able to overcome that. So what else means that this game might not be for other people? Well, I do also think that, the love of this game, and it's no denying what this game is. It's a dice-based combat game. It's positional play, tactical and strategic combat play based using dice. And if you like deterministic combat, then this may not be the game for you. Because the dice, yes, you can mitigate the dice. Yes, you can choose units to do X, Y, and Z. And there's ways to improve your dice rolls in certain areas. But in reality, you are at the mercy of these dice. And if that affects you in any way, shape, or form, then you're not going to get away from a core gameplay principle of Hoplomachus, which is absolutely dice-based combat. If that dice not for you, this game is not going to be for you as well. So there's a couple of minor gripes there in terms of just maybe the rule book could be a bit more comprehensive, but I think we're going to learn more as time goes on. And as I say, if dice aren't for you, then it's not going to be for you. But I think in terms of the two soloable game modes here, you have the Colosseum, which is potentially a quicker game, if you like, depending on, or from start to finish is a quicker game, if you like, and against the Titans. But even those can, it can take, 45, 50 minutes, 60 minutes maybe to play through, depending on your how long you're taking your decision space. Same with the Onslaught Mode on the other side of the map with the Pazzuli Arena against the Titans. The length of the game is going to be dictated by, not Titans, sorry, Immortals. The length of the game is going to be dictated by how many Immortals you go through or how quickly they destroy you at the same time. And that's a real puzzle. And if you remember, kind of one of the modes in Cloudspire was the Onslaught Mode, if you like, where it's wave after wave coming at you. This is exactly the same, and it's great fun. It's old school kind of video game stuff where you beat one guy and then the next one comes along. They're not necessarily stronger, they may be, depending on who the Immortal is, but you are certainly weaker based on what's happened before. Yes, the crowd favour can help you kind of come back there. So those are the two solo modes. You've got Skirmish, you've also got the competitive and the team mode as well outside there. So if you're going to play it with lots of people, then, there's loads in here for you to do. But as a solo gamer, there's still a lot here for you to do. I know a lot of you are going to say, which would you rather have in your collection? This or Victorum? Now, I've played this a lot more than Victorum. I've only played through the first act in Victorum. Victorum is obviously a solo-only game. I am a solo player. But I would say there is definitely space in your collection for both of them. You see, Victorum is more of a longer campaign-style game, whereas this takes no time to set up. Of course it doesn't. You get everything's arranged in the chips, etc. It takes no time to set up whatsoever. Maybe 5 minutes you've got your game set up. You can dive straight in, play a game in maybe 45 minutes, less than an hour, and put it away. Whereas Victorum, you're going to want to complete one of those acts, and there are 4 acts in a campaign, so it's a lot longer. So when you're looking for that quicker hit of kind of Hoplomachus, this really hits the mark from a solo perspective. If you're looking for a more in-depth experience, an RPG type experience, then Victorum, I'm still to review Victorum yet. I want to finish a campaign before I do that. Then maybe Victorum is the way to go. If you think you're going to play Hoplomachus with other people, or you want to show people how Hoplomachus plays, then Remastered is definitely for you. The teach is relatively straightforward. It almost teaches itself, despite my concerns and what I said about kind of, you know, some of the potential gaps in the rule book and the logic that you have to use. The basics are still very straightforward as well. So with my wife, the first game, including the teach, when we played Skirmish, took around about an hour. And that includes the teach. She grasped the concepts by kind of the second and third round, and you know, she was kind of, you know, running on her own then for subsequent rounds of that. So it's a relatively straightforward game to teach if you're looking to share it with others as well. So I think, you know, there is so much game within the box of Hoplomachus Remastered. If you have the cash and you have the resources for it and the space for it, then it is worth having both in your collection. I can potentially see Victorum at some point when people have completed the campaign, maybe once or twice, going on to the market, unless they release additional expansions for it, which, you know, knowing Chip Theory, they probably will do. Whereas Remastered, I can see growing and growing. It'd be nice to see other kind of factions coming in. That's a point as well. The PDF hasn't been released yet, but Chip Theory will be releasing a PDF on their website on how you can integrate chips and factions from Victorum into Remastered and vice versa. So they're going to make the game kind of cross-reference each game, so you can play with the units in either game, which is really, really good. It's going to add some more variety into your games of Remastered. So yeah, overall, I think Remastered is fantastic. It gives you that more streamlined experience from Hoplomachus. So, as I said at the beginning, my Hoplomachus lent it out to a friend about 6, 7, 8 months ago, something like that. So I haven't played it recently to make a direct comparison against original Hoplomachus, but certainly from what I played, it feels more streamlined. You only have 3 icons on the chips now, which is your health, your range, and your speed. And the keywords are less, and you have this really handy kind of unit here, and more things make sense. I've talked about that logic puzzle in the rule book. Once you get into that mindset, it becomes second nature to play that through, and you play through any kind of questions or problems fairly quickly. Streamlining the game modes, I think, is really, really good, and both the Puzzuli arena that you use for the Onslaught mode and the Colosseum that you use for the Ascension mode, they work differently and work very, very well differently, and there's different tactics, different dynamics that come into play. So I think the variety is there. I think if you're a purely solo gamer, there is still space in your collection for Hoplomachus Remastered, because these two give you that condensed Hoplomachus experience, if you like, whereas Victorum gives you a longer running experience. So for me, yes, you know, I've always loved Hoplomachus. You know, I think it's rightly got a place as kind of one of a lot of solo gamers' favourite games ever. The strategies you employ, the positional play you employ, the abilities, the interweaving of mechanisms just to make a really smooth and kind of immense experience is really, really well done. You get a really grand kind of sense of battle, of combat here. It's almost untouched by any other game of this kind of genre. I think it's fantastic. I think the one that comes closest to it for me, which is very different, is Senjutsu, coming from Stone Sword Games, which shares some of the DNA of Hoplomachus, but puts it in a kind of feudal Japanese era. Plays differently, but you'll see some similarities there. But for me, Hoplomachus is the top of the tree when it comes to positional play, tactical and strategic combat games. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, there we go. That is my review of Hoplomachus Remastered. A couple of caveats: the rulebook, you know, the if it's solo only, then you are going to have only those 2 modes, and of course it is purely dice play as well. So if dice play isn't your thing, then it may not be for you. But other than that, it's really, really highly recommended. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So pleased I got to play this copy of Hoplomachus Remastered. Been playing this more than Victorum. I will be going into Victorum now that I've done this review, but I played this maybe 13, 14, 15 times since I got it a couple of weeks ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed every game that I've got from it. So there we go. Hoplomachus Remastered from Chip Theory Games. It's a stone cold recommendation from me. So thank you very much for joining me on this journey through Hoplomachus Remastered from Chip Theory Games. My name's Mark, this is Not Board Gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, check out our other videos, and one final thought. If you can't find anyone else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye bye.